We'll be reaching the iron bridge over Megami River in about 30 minutes. Yeah, should be right around then, I said, looking at my wristwatch. Having broken the silence that had fallen, everyone turned to look at me. It was a mostly empty night train. The shaking of the car had been getting stronger and stronger since a while earlier. The four of us were the only ones who were still awake. We were right in the middle of summer. Yet, because we'd come to a rather high elevation inland, it was a little chilly in our short sleeves. "What are you talking about, Koizumi-kun?" Yabe Kazumi asked. No, nothing," I stammered a few times. "It's nothing important," I said. Hey, if you're gonna say something, then say it," the tough Ida Kiichiro said. "What's this about the iron bridge over Megami River?" He was the one that was telling overdramatic ghost stories until just a short while ago. Apparently, he found it funny to make the girls cry and scream. "Damn," I said and scratched my head. "Hey, Shuichi-kun," Yui said next to me, stroking her long hair. Her voice sounded forlorn. "I don't want to hear any more scary stories." Yui. Sakitani Yui. Yui and Kazumi were cousins the same age. And she was my, Koizumi Shuichi, girlfriend since high school. This last spring we started our happy lives as university students. We were all going to different universities, but we were old high school friends. Ida was the only one who was a year older than us. He took a year off after high school, so we were now in the same grade at university. This was our first summer vacation since starting university. We had been talking about spending our holiday at a highland retreat. And that was where we were on our way to. Ida and Kazumi had also been dating since high school. "Yui, you're such a coward," Kazumi said with a bitter smile. "You're already shaking like a baby just over Ida-san's scary stories from before." "Seriously," Ida said and clucked his tongue. "And now is the time to get into the real scary stories. And I've got a real special one for you. So it's gonna be a problem if you give up now." "Seriously?" She was still slowly stroking her hair. "It's not like I'm a coward. I mean, I read scary books, like those by Ayatsuji Yukito." Ayatsuji? Those are detective novels, aren't they? They're not quite the same as scary stories, Ida said, making fun of her. Yui looked at me with eyes begging for help. "All right, okay," I muttered, and then turned to Ida. "It's not like Yui-chan is trying to be scared." "Ho ho! At the very least, the stories we just heard from you were..." "What do you mean?" Kazumi asked, confused. "Meaning, the stories Ida-san just told us were nothing more than fakes," I said. "And, if you listen to them as such, then there's no need to be afraid." Ida snorted and then searched my face. So then, do you know any real stories, Koizumi? I sighed and nodded yes. Liar. I do. He's telling the truth. Yui joined in. Shuichi's stories are the real deal, Yui said, her voice somewhat stiff. I've heard 2 of his scary stories before, and both of them were... Twice? What happened? Kazumi asked suspiciously. After a moment's hesitation, Yui answered in a low voice. Something strange happened after hearing them. Kazumi and Ida looked at each other and giggled. It's true! Yui's voice rose. It's really true! Yes, it is, I said, looking at the darkness passing by on the other side of the window. And that's why I didn't really want to tell you the story about the iron bridge over Megami River. Sounds interesting, Kazumi smiled. Tell us and let's see if it's real or not. But in general, things like monsters and ghosts don't actually exist, right, Ida-san? Exactly. Ida gave a large nod. Scary stories are told to have fun, to scare and be scared, with all parties aware that they're fake to begin with. Am I wrong? Come on then, tell us the story. If that's how you feel, then let me tell you. If that's how you feel, then let me tell you, I said with a light click of my tongue. The story should finish right as we near the iron bridge in question. I turned to look at Yui. Is that okay with you, Yui-chan? I asked her. No, I'm good. She shook her head. I don't want to hear it again. Really? I'm gonna sit in that open seat over there. I have a book with me, so let me know when you're done. She quietly took a pouch out of her bag on the racks above us. The sweeping of her white dress left a faint breeze as she left. To tell you the truth, I lived around here until junior high, and moved when I started high school. I began. But this is something that really happened back then. I wonder how long ago that was. It must have been about 10 years ago now. I was still in elementary school at the time. It was July, just like now. We'd entered our school break. There were wide green fields and a somehow terrifying large red setting sun. The sun was just about to set, so the boy hurried to pack up his fishing gear. The river in front of him sparkled red with the setting sun. It was beautiful, but also a little frightening. He had to get back, quickly. He thought of home. His younger brother was asleep at home. He caught a cold soon after the summer holidays started. The boys were twins. Was he doing okay? Yeah, he had to be. He was always much tougher than me. Shouldering his tackle box, he grabbed his fishing rod and basket in both hands. He climbed up the hill. The entire field in front of him was dyed red. If you kept following the path along the bank, it eventually led to the railway tracks. He could see the old iron bridge over Megami River. He needed to hurry home, he thought, but after a few steps, he suddenly stopped. What was that? There was something white in the middle of the open field. It was a girl. A lone girl in white clothing stood in such a strange place. He heard a fish jump. His grip on the basket in his hands had loosened. But the boy's gaze was glued to the girl, and he couldn't move. The girl's white clothes in the red sunset billowed with the wind from the river. Ah, how beautiful she is, the boy thought. Her long hair, hanging over her shoulders and down to her chest, also blew, almost like it was summoning him to come closer. And her face, also dyed red, was terribly cute. Her large eyes stared right at him. The boy forgot himself for a moment. The girl in white, still facing him, started to disappear into the distance. The moment she started moving, the boy started walking again, chasing after her exquisite smile. "Hey!" the boy finally said. The girl didn't turn around, but kept moving backwards at the same pace. "Hey! Who are you?" The boy picked up the pace. He abandoned his fishing goods. "Hey! Wait!" Yet no matter how fast he ran, he couldn't catch up to the girl. He chased her, and still she kept moving away. She seemed to be floating through the air as she continued facing him. But the boy couldn't stop. It was like some invisible force had gripped him and wouldn't let go. Time slipped away. By the time he realized it, the red in the west had completely disappeared. The boy was bewildered. The sun had disappeared, and he stood in darkness. He had no idea what was going on. That was how it felt. What should he do? How far had he run? It was so dark. His parents would get angry when he got home. The boy was at a loss for what to do. However, when he looked forward, the boy was shocked. That girl was there, standing only 2 or 3 meters ahead of him. She was so beautiful, the boy thought once again. The sunset no longer dyed her white clothes. Her face and her arms poking out from her sleeves were so white, they were almost translucent. "Who on earth are you?" the boy asked, forgetting all about his worries. "Where did you come from? Why didn't you stop?" Yet the girl didn't answer him. She simply smiled beautifully in return. Then her right hand stroked her long hair, as though beckoning him to come closer. The boy continued on unsteady feet. The boy continued on unsteady feet. somewhere, he heard a grave sound. But the boy didn't think too deeply about it. No, to put it more correctly, he couldn't. 1 step, 2 steps. The boy proceeded towards the girl. "Hey, who are you? What's your name?" The boy finally reached the girl standing on a slightly elevated place. He could hear that grave sound. It was getting louder. But the boy didn't pay any attention to it. The girl didn't retreat this time. Instead, she silently turned around. The hem of her white dress drew an arc through the air. "Hey, who are you? Why won't you speak? Say something. Hey!" The sound was almost right upon them. At the same time, a strong light. At that moment, the girl slowly turned around. But it wasn't the charming smile the boy had been expecting. Her eyes slanted sharply upward. Her sickening bright red mouth split open wide, smiling like a madman. The boy screamed and ran. But it was already too late. A loud roar thundered down upon him. A whistle rang out. A white light burned hot. A moment later, the boy's blood stained the tracks. Suddenly, the train car shook violently, and Ida and Kazumi jumped in surprise. I gave a small cough and looked at the pair with cold eyes. "And that's it?" Ida asked. "Yes, it is." He nodded, and I turned to look at Kazumi. Her lips were pressed tightly together, and she looked up at me. "That's odd," Ida said, his voice hoarse. Yeah, for sure. The way you told it was great, and even I jumped at the end there, but in the end, it's still a fake story too, isn't it?" "Why do you think so?" "I mean, if you're claiming that it's a real incident that actually happened, then..." Ida licked his lips. "That boy died in the end, didn't he?" "Yes." "And that girl, if we assume she was hit by a train long ago, then we can assume that's all related, but that means she's like a Grim Reaper or something." "Perhaps so, yes." "Which means," Ida continued triumphantly, "that there's no way that anyone could know about what happened, so it couldn't have really happened." Ida looked at me like he'd gotten me, that there was no way to explain it, and he'd won. I replied without changing my expression even a bit. "The problem is how I know this story, isn't it?" "The problem is how I know this story, isn't it?" "That's right. You're not gonna tell me you're that boy's spirit or something, are you?" "Of course not." I shook my head, killing the inflection in my voice. "I experienced this incident in a dream, becoming that boy." "Huh?" And right at the same time, that boy actually died in real life. He was hit by a train right in front of the Megami River Iron Bridge. That boy's name was Koizumi Shuji. Shuji? I was asleep at home with a cold at the time. I'm his younger twin brother, Koizumi Shuichi. The train car fell completely silent. Everybody else was asleep. A silence fell over the three of us still awake. I wonder where Yui is, Kazumi said, suddenly remembering her. I stood up from my seat and looked around the inside of the car. That's odd. Doesn't look like she's here. Maybe she's in the toilet. Maybe. Oh no, now that I just heard that story, I'm kinda worried. Huh? Kazumi let out a short gasp and then put her palm behind her ear. What's wrong? Ida asked. Hey, did you hear something just now? Ida furrowed his brow. Hear what? A voice, Kazumi answered. It sounded just like Yui's voice. Like she was screaming or something. Hey, I didn't hear a thing. No, I heard it, I said. I can't be certain that it was Yui-chan's voice, but it sounded like a woman's scream. I looked at Kazumi, and both of us nodded at each other. Oh, come on. Ida shrugged his shoulders wildly. Now you're getting in on Koizumi's story too, Kazumi? Neither of us said a thing. We turned our ears to the car in front of us and listened closely. Wait here. I'll go and check. With that, Ida rose to his feet. If what Yui-chan said before is true, then that strange thing she said would happen will be happening soon. I'm looking forward to it, Koizumi. As Ida walked down the aisle, I muttered in a low voice. We'll be at the Iron Bridge soon, huh? Ida Kiichiro went out to the deck alone. Beneath the dim lights, the sound of the wheels below echoed even louder. He looked left and right, but nobody was there. The only thing there was the darkness of the outside stuck to the glass in the passenger's door. Yui-chan, he called out, but she didn't reply. Not here, huh? Ida continued walking, calling out her name. Yui-chan! Even his footsteps disappeared beneath the racket of the train's wheels below. The toilet was supposed to be to the right of the aisle, and the washroom to the left. He could faintly hear the sound of a running tap, but... Yui-chan? Ida walked over to the washroom, and then peeked through the gap in the closed curtain. Ah, there she is. He saw a woman standing there in a white dress. Kazumi and Koizumi are worried about you. They said they heard you scream. Koizumi's done with his story now, so you can come back. She said nothing in return, but just kept facing the washstand. Hey, Yui-chan. Maybe she couldn't hear his voice. Yui-chan? Finding it strange, Ida opened the curtain. Finding it strange, Ida opened the curtain. What's wrong? Hey! Ida stepped forward to approach her. Then, finally, she slowly turned around. Just as she did, a scream surged out of Ida's throat. Looks like it went well. Kazumi laughed mischievously as she heard Ida's screams coming from the deck. Looks like we did it, huh? I smiled, letting my cheeks relax. We win, I said proudly. I honestly never once thought that you'd conspire with us as well. Seriously? Kazumi nodded and chuckled. I wanted to get him at least once. I'm gonna make so much fun of him later. I hope he doesn't feel too bad about it. It'll be fine. I wouldn't date someone who couldn't deal with a little something like this. Pale skin, upturned eyes, a sickening bright red mouth cut open wide like a crescent moon. Beneath that mask was Yui's familiar face that Ida knew all too well. We sure gotcha. Yui laughed playfully. You're unexpectedly faint-hearted, Ida-san. Ida, who had fallen weak-kneed to the ground, sat there a moment with his mouth wide open. He didn't even have the energy to get angry at her. Wow, so you were all trying to scare me, huh? That's right. Ida looked sullen and pulled himself back up to his feet. Yui put the rubber mask back in her bag and then exited the washroom to the aisle outside. Come on, let's go back. Hey, hang on. Ida rubbed his neck uncomfortably. If we go back right now, it's... how can I put it? Embarrassing? Yeah, exactly. Huh. You're more sensitive than you look, Ida-san. You don't know how they're gonna make fun of me. Let's go kill some time in another car. Hey, Yui-chan, please, come on. Oh, fine, alright, Yui said and smiled. Hey, Koizumi-kun, Kazumi said, her forehead stuck to the window glass as she looked outside. So that Iron Bridge story, was it, actually true? Ha! Are you actually scared? I answered with a small laugh. Yui-chan was the one who came up with the story that something strange would happen after my scary story. But that story had some sort of unpleasant force behind it. Really? It's not like I've ever lived around here. Nor did I have a twin brother, so... I had a friend from a previous school who lived around here, and I heard that story from him. Is that so? I don't even believe in ghosts or monsters or anything like that to begin with. Yui-chan's the same, right? Those two are awful slow. I turned to look towards the deck. I'm gonna go take a look. They'll be fine, Kazumi said. Ida-san is pretty self-conscious, so he no doubt asked Yui-chan to wait with him in another car for a bit. Nah, I'm still gonna take a look, I said and stood up. Nah, I'm still gonna take a look, I said and stood up. Can't exactly leave the two of them to cook something up for us this time, can we? So you say, Kazumi gave a low laugh. But really, you're just worried about Yui, aren't you? The train continued tirelessly through the darkness. It shook left to right, but even more violently than before. As I carefully walked forward, I stepped onto the deck. The sound of heavy wheels shaking my stomach and a slight chill embraced my body at the same time. The light in the ceiling was perhaps reaching the end of its lifespan as it started to flicker and weaken. I couldn't see any silhouettes in the darkness. Where had the two of them gone? The very same moment I had that thought, the train car shook violently. I completely lost balance. I didn't even have time to reach out for the wall to balance myself, and I fell on my backside. As I fell, I also felt oddly dizzy. The inside of my head churned. The world slowly spun and small pins and needles spread throughout my body. Had I passed out for a few seconds? I couldn't see a thing, but deep in my ears I felt the ringing of the train's wheels. As the dizziness cleared and my consciousness returned, this time I felt a strange chill, like it was the middle of winter. What was going on? As I shook my head, I planted both hands on the ground to stand up. Well, that sucked. Was I bleeding? Did Yui-chan and Ida go to the other train car after all? With that in mind, I looked forward and... Oh, Yui-chan, is that you? The door in front of me was open, and on the other side was... a woman in a white dress. Her long black hair blew in the breeze, and she seemed to melt into the darkness behind her. Where's Ida-san? He was surprised, right? We heard his voice all the way over there. I rubbed my blurry eyes, but I couldn't clearly see her expression. Yui-chan? Hey! The voice of an innocent boy echoed in the distance, somewhere beyond time and space. Yui-chan? Hey! I started walking, believing that door to lead to the next car. Hey, Yui-chan? I called out my girlfriend's name over and over. Yui-chan? I took a large step towards her as she stood in the darkness. In that instant, her face warped and twisted into a terrifying smile. I let out a long, long scream as I was sucked into the dark void. At that very moment, The train approached the black, squat Megami River Iron Bridge.